Welcome to Talk to Your Mom, a home for conversation where generational knowledge is wealth. I'm your host, Kiara Kelly, writer, producer, speaker, and advocate for all things women. And I will be joined by my mother, Tarawana Kelly, life coach and founder of TYL Foundation. We're going to discuss some transformative topics and have some vulnerable conversations about life, love, and growth.
I need to call my mom.
Hey,
Hey, Mama.
how you doing?
Mama, I got something to tell you.
Hello, Kiara.
Hey, Mama. Can we talk? You just never do that.
I do say that.
Mama, you will not believe what just happened today.
What happened?
All right, I love you.
I love you too.
The reason we wanted to start this space is because our mothers hold so much wisdom, and it's such a blessing to be able to talk to your mom and share experiences with someone from a totally different generation than you. I really wanted to have these conversations to exist as an invitation for all of you who are listening to have these discussions with the women in your life. Hey y'all, and welcome back to Talk to Your Mom. We missed you, family. And happy Mother's Day to all the mamas, baby mamas out there. And most of all, happy Mother's Day to you, Mama Tarawana Kelly, the greatest of all time.
Oh, thank you.
Now, I know, Mama, you wanted to have like a special message for everybody listening today who may be grieving around Mother's Day. Did you have any thoughts you wanted to share?
Yes. Everybody on Mother's Day will not be happy and gleaming because they may have lost their mother. And we understand, not fully because I haven't lost my mother and my daughters haven't lost me. But anybody out there that have lost their mother, we just want you to know that this is a heartfelt Mother's Day gift to you. And whether you have an aunt, a grandmother, a great-grandmother, your mother's friend, or just somebody that was close to you like a mother, we want you to celebrate them with gleam and vigor and excitement because we all need each other to survive.
Yes, it takes a village, and every single role is important. You know, I know for me, as a single woman, as an auntie, you know, I had to figure out what my role was. And I see how I can be a second mom to my nieces and nephews and goddaughters. And so I think it's just really important for us all to know it does take a village.
It does.
And for the people who may not have that mother figure, they're still aunties, they're still cousins, they're still a best friend. You
Yes.
said you were basically raised by some of your mama's best friends.
Of course.
Yeah.
Because that's how our community was.
Yes.
And because we had a community of a sisterhood that my mother had, all of us still had a surrogate mother even when your mother wasn't there.
Yes, yes. And so our hope is that we can really get back into those community dynamics because we need each other. And so we just want to send out a heartfelt message to all those who may be grieving today or even having a difficult relationship with their mother. Our hope is always that we can be surrogates for you all and to bring you a sense of comfort. So we just wanted to get that out of the way. But this first episode of Talk to Your Mom Season 3 is very special because I'm actually right next to my mom. Every other season we were apart from each other, but over this last 4 years, I've really just been digging into being around my family more and just like seeping myself into the generations of wisdom that I'm so privileged to have access to, having my mother and my grandmother with me. And I know we went through a lot. My mom is now primary caregiver of my grandma. And so I've been here in Ohio at home helping out with that. And I know for you, Mom, it's been a miracle to find location and a good spot for a grandma to be at.
It was very, very difficult, but through faith, and I'm telling you all, through faith, God opened the door for us because she was living with me for like 6 months. But by faith, I got her into a place, not because of anything I did, because God opened the door. My mother is very independent. strong will, and she is in her right mind. And she has always said, every day that you wake up, you ask God to keep you in your right mind. She's aging in her body, but she's still in her right mind. So we were able to get her into an apartment, senior citizen apartment, cute apartment. She loves it. And I'm right around the corner from her. So it was a season of give and take. But I'm just so thankful and grateful that I'm in the season I am right now to elevate her.
Yes, yes. And that's the most important thing too. Like when we talk about talk to your mom, the role of women transforms as we age, but the work is never done. You know, you've gone from taking care of children to taking care of your mother. And so we really wanted to highlight how that evolution, these transitions, they are impossible without faith. And me and my mom have really just been talking about all of the women of faith that we glean wisdom from to get us through, because in the last couple of years, my relationship with God has completely transformed. I'm so grateful to be able to read the Bible in the way that I am now. I think when I was younger, I'd look at it like, this is so boring. How can people even spend time doing this? Now I'm gobbling it up. But I think with a lot of life experience, I started looking at the people in the Bible and realizing, wait a second, these are the stories of people of faith, and that story continues in our lives.
Yes, it does.
And
Yes, it
so
does.
when I talk about the women in the Bible, I am encouraged by the power of one woman's story. And that's really what we wanted to focus on for this episode. Because I think a lot of times women struggle with feeling insignificant, unheard, as if they don't matter. And God uses those who are considered the most insignificant for the most powerful purposes.
Absolutely.
So, Mom, I would love for you to share what you were journaling about in that recently, because I was just so encouraged in that.
Well, I have really, really been into Andre Lord, and I want you all to listen to this. If I didn't define myself for myself, I would be crunched into other people's fantasies for me and eaten alive. And she made this in 1982 at Harvard University.
We love some Audre
Woo!
Lorde.
And then the other one that really touches me, because this is all about what my foundation is. And so I just really want you all to listen to this, because this is in the depths of my spirit. I am not free, while any woman is unfree, even when her shackles are different from mine. Andre Lorde said that. So all of us are going through something, whether it's finances, whether it's with your children, whether it's with loss, whether it's health issues. All of us have something that we're going through. Somebody's shackles may be different from y'all, but I'm not free until my sister friend can get free. And as women, we are supposed to not only encourage them, but if you can lift them up in that great hour of need, it makes significant difference in their lives. To me, that is imperative.
It's imperative. And I love what you said in the Audre Lorde quote about defining you for yourself.
Yes.
Because people will really create a fantasy around you. And sadly, I have experienced this so much throughout my life. It doesn't matter what kind of strife, difficulty, pain I go to. For some reason, people just dehumanize me like I'm supposed to be super dancy sunshine every day of my life. And I had to sit in that and what to do with that. Because I've literally, Mom, I've told people like I'm in so much pain and I can't comfort right now. And I've been called selfish or all you care about is yourself. And it's actually Audre Lorde who said caring for myself is I'm not going to get it perfectly, but it's an act of self-preservation.
Absolutely.
And if I'm not well, I can't be well for
No.
other people.
No.
But I think especially for Black women, we've been expected for so long to just be a martyr for everyone. And what I love about your quote is it breaks the fantasy and it says, look, we all are experiencing pain. Mm-hmm. And if you're looking at your sister like she's supposed to be your superwoman, then you're actually missing out on loving her. Mm-hmm. Because we all need comfort. We all need support. And sometimes that love has to go inside before it can go outside.
That's right.
So I love that you brought that up, because I really had to remove a lot of toxic relationships from people who were expecting me to be superhuman for them, and didn't have a lot of empathy for the things I was struggling with. And it helped me to have empathy for myself for the very first time in my life. And being able to be open and honest and transparent about how much help I need has really saved me. So I love just listening to other women and their experiences. And some of my favorite women to listen to are the stories of the women in the Bible.
Yes.
And Mama, what was you reading recently that you was talking about with just being inspired by the women of faith?
So every woman, including you and me, have a story. So I started looking up women of the Bible. And as I was looking it up, the first one was the woman with the issue of blood. She would tell me and you, when all has failed, God never fails. If Esther was talking to you and me, she would tell us, trust God. He will exalt you in his timing. And I want to say this right quick. God is time. God is not bound by time. God's timing is perfect. And when we get ahead of our assignment of God, it does not work out because we're moving ahead of him. If Ruth was to talk to me and you, she would tell us it's not over until God says it's over. If Hannah was talking to you and me, she would tell us God will answer your prayer. If you don't know about Hannah, Hannah wanted a baby. She prayed and prayed. They used to think she was drunk. She was praying and praying. She wanted a baby. But God answered her prayer. Rahab, if she was talking to you and me, she would say to me and you, my past doesn't define me. God can use anyone. So it even go back to Andre Lord. And Sarah will tell you and me, nothing is too hard for God. So when I looked at that, it empowered me to know, even way back then, they had to go through something. We're not in a perfect form. We're never going to be in a perfect form that everything is going to be right. But the God that I serve, hallelujah, I have to believe it and I have to live like I believe it. So every step I take, I have to not pretend, but to walk like I'm on holy ground, that God is in front of me. I am courageous, because the first name in the Bible was I am that I am to Moses. So I am. So I said, Father God, you know me. You know what's best for me. Allow me to give up control and fully embrace you. Terminate all my doubts or my fears that may come upon me, and help me to be a better mentor, a better surrogate mother for the women of today, so it can elevate them to the point that they feel alive and well in spirit, mind, and body.
It's true. And every woman that you named, Hagar has been one of the most important women in the Bible for me, because, and I believe that she in ways is a patron saint for abused women and women who are thrust into situations that didn't have nothing to do with them. Whether you're a survivor of childhood abuse, whether you're a survivor of domestic violence. Hagar was a woman who was not only forced into, really, for those who don't know the story of Hagar, God had promised Abraham and Sarah a child. And they started floundering in their faith. And Sarah told Abraham that he could bed his slave girl in order to produce a child, because she had waned in her faith, because she was waiting for a baby so long and she was older by that time. So she said, okay, I'm going to intervene. And we know what happens when you put your hands in something that God has already spoken on. Absolutely. So what I love about Hagar is, because even though we know Abraham and Sarah are the mothers and fathers of our faith, Hagar, her importance to us in the entire biblical story is after she had the baby, again, all these things against her will, she was kicked out and forced into the desert.
Yes.
She was crying in the desert,
Yes.
begging for her son to live, for her and her
Yes.
son to live. And the most powerful thing that happened is that God opened up a well for her. And that well saved her and her son. And so I love Hagar because she reminds me that even the most abused and seemingly discarded amongst us have power. And here we are talking about Hagar, who some would say in the creation of the biblical family is insignificant because it's not Abraham and Sarah. Oh no, baby. What Hagar unlocks for me is the power of a God who shows up for you in the desert. I would be nowhere if I hadn't have believed that God could show up for me in that same way. Because there are so many seasons where as women, it don't matter if you got sister girlfriends, it don't matter if you got parents, it don't matter if you got a man. This is a really one-on-one walk from birth back to God.
Yes.
And that is it's a walk with the divine and yourself. And so even though I know we can all really struggle with isolation, I believe really pulling on the power of those women who survived things in the Bible can remind you that that same power is within you now. Because an abused slave girl, her story still stands 2,000 years later. And we got to realize that we as women of faith are planting those same seeds. So I would love to just talk about my grandma for a second, as I know we opened up with that. And it's been so important for me to be close to my big trees, my mother trees in this time. So I would love for you, Mama, to just talk about what you pull on faith-wise from your ancestors, from your mother and from your great-grandmother, because that's really what's keeping our entire bloodline alive right now is their faith. They was picking cotton in Mississippi.
You know what? But yes, they were. And when I look back and remember all the things that my grandmother would say to me, it's so funny to me that my grandmother poured so much into me, more than my mother. I don't know, it was just something about my grandmother. My grandmother could see. My grandmother, I could come to her house and she would automatically know something. Tell me what's wrong. Tell me what's wrong. So when I look at the substance of what she gave me, just penetrates who I am as a woman. And I'll never forget one of the strongest things that she's ever said to me. She said, I don't care if you don't have but 2 pennies in your pocket. You better walk like you belong to the king. And if you can't, you stay in your house until you can get yourself together, because people love to see you at your weakest, vulnerable point in your life. I'll never forget that. I will never forget it. Back then, I did not understand it because I said, what is she talking about? And another thing she said that helped me to help somebody else in this time. She was 100 years old, and I took her to the bank. I'll never forget this. And they said, hi, Eliza. She said, well, hello. And so she began to do her transactions. And then she said she wanted $125 in ones. And I looked at her and I said, well, what is that all about? And she looked at me with this strong sense of presence. I can see her and feel her now. And she looked at me, she said, gal, I can't see what a 20 or a 10 or a 5 look like. But if I have our ones and somebody tell me it's 1451, I can count them out 15 ones, and then I put my change in my change box. That was wisdom.
It's wisdom.
So then I had a mentee that went completely blind. She went blind. So guess what? What my grandmother told me, I told her, I said, when you go to the bank or whatever you do, get ones. Because she could no longer see anymore. So the wisdom that my grandmother gave me empowered me to have that sense to be able to help somebody in this 2,000 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
This was 2022.
Yeah. And that wisdom of great grandma, it sits with me. It sits with me. And that's why I'm so grateful that we're discussing generational wisdom and generational knowledge, because that really is the wealth. That really is the wisdom. And I know that a lot of us come from financial situations that at times or seasons or years feel abysmal. But there really is another richness deep inside. And the reason why I know the richness is inside is because it ain't never been money that carried generations of us over.
No.
It's always been Jesus. So everybody who want to say, oh, it's this and this and this that got me over, no. What got my great grandmother through picking cotton in Mississippi, seeing black men dragged and quartered and lynched around her.
Yes.
What got her through that was not the latest fashion trend or the nicest house or the nicest car. It was her faith.
It was her faith.
And now you're talking about 12 years after she passed, another woman who's going blind, gleaning those keys from her. So what I'm amazed by that is, again, the power of one woman's story.
Yes.
Because here we are talking about my great grandmother 12 years after she's passed and the wisdom that we're gleaning from her. And I think as Black people, we come from an African heritage. And so we all were meant to be in a village environment together, close to our grandmothers, close to our great grandmothers, because every single generation needs that wisdom in order to propel them faster than the generation before. If you're not getting the wisdom from your elders, you're actually missing out on a huge gap of opportunity, because if you're gleaning wisdom from your grandma, she already has about 70 more years of life experience than you, so she can actually hand you the cheat codes.
And you know what? I'll never forget. She said to me, she said, "Gal, you better hold on because this world's getting ready to shake." I said, "Shake?" She said, "Everything that is happening has happened before."
Nothing new under the sun.
She said, "Nothing new is under the sun." She said, "But you have an anchor inside of you, and you're going to be pulling on that anchor." And so I go back to this other when you talked about Hagar, is El Roi, God sees. God sees. So in that wilderness moment with Hagar, that's why El Roi came about, because it's God sees. It's in Genesis, I believe 16:13. God sees. So in my walk, in the morning when I wake up, I say, "Thank you for this day." Because see, somebody didn't wake up this morning. Thank you for the air I breathe. Thank you for the gift of life. And thank you for keeping me in my right mind. Because that goes back to my grandmother saying that same thing, keep me in my right mind. She wouldn't have been able to have the wisdom to say, "Give me dollars," if she wasn't in her right mind.
Yes. And it's so important for us to realize, for those of us who do have access to that wisdom, and maybe it's not an elder who's related to you. Maybe it's an elder that is your best friend's grandma. God provides so many different channels for us to get what we need. And I think when we pigeonholed ourselves to wanting God to do it one way, we actually close our eyes off to the many ways that he wants to love us and bless us. It may not look exactly like you want it to. I know so many people are yearning and aching for that relationship with their mother. But if you go to God and you say, "I need a mother figure, I need somebody to show up for me in this way," he will send someone to you. I've had so many moments, especially in my singlehood, where I have just been on my knees crying, being like, "Lord, I just want to feel like somebody sees me and wants to romance me," and all of that. And God has just had one of my girlfriends just say, "Hey girl, you want to go to dinner?" And they'll just take care of the dinner. That's romance. That's still God showing me that I'm desired, seen, cared for. And so we all just have to remember that even when we're reading the Bible stories or listening to our grandmothers, we are those new seeds of faith. And like you said, Grandma said, this world about to roll. I ain't gonna hold y'all. There's a lot going on into this world, but we know who our anchor is. And the best part about the Bible and scripture is that you're reciting the words that people for generations have been reciting. So this is a build-up of power that you can really anchor yourself to, because the reason talk to your mom, the icon is an image of a tree, is because these are roots that go deep into the soil.
Absolutely.
And so we're pulling from something layers into the earth.
Absolutely.
And that starts with having conversations like these. So,
And I want to say one more thing before we go, and I think it's so important. For all the young mothers and young ladies that are listening, quit thinking that older people don't know anything. They know a lot. And just because they may not have the same lingo that you have, maybe they're not fast on your Instagram or Facebook or Twitter or whatever the social medias you use, they have a Twitter. And his name is Jesus. They have an Instagram, and his name is Jesus. They have a TikTok. His name is Jesus. He is always there. So if you want that real, raw information that will carry you through to your next generation, to your children's children, listen to wise women of the Bible and the women that are present in your life.
Mama, I'm so glad you said that, because we really have unlimited resources in y'all. Unlimited.
Thank you.
And I also want to say, for the women who are your age in your 70s, be very honest about your stories. I know that your generation struggled a lot with shame and don't air your dirty laundry and the dirty secrets, keep it in the home. But that's actually cutting us off from being able to let other women know what we've been through so that you don't have to feel isolated in it. Whether you're a survivor of assault, abuse, your man cheated on you, somebody left you, somebody has gone through all these things and survived it. And so even to just share that with the youth, what you've been through, that already opens up a huge wave of healing, because they'll be able to know what you survived and the tools you used to survive in order to pull them through. So while you're saying like younger people, go to your elders, I'm also saying elders, open your mouths and tell us the truth. Because what didn't work is I'm a prim and proper woman who never cusses, never had sex, never did anything. None of that works, because
It doesn't.
most of everybody was doing everything.
They just did it
they're
in different
human.
ways. We're just
human.
everybody's human.
And nobody's perfect.
Nobody.
And so the more that we can be transparent and vulnerable as women, the more power that we have. Because if God had not chosen to include the stories of Hannah, who was so scared that she wouldn't have a baby, or Ruth, who lost her whole family and was gleaning the fields and then ended up owning the fields, or Hagar, who was seemingly discarded, but her seed birthed generations that are still here today. And just remembering that all those moments of insignificance are still significant to God. And the only way we're going to do that and to continue to know that is by really rooting into the power of one woman's story and one woman's faith to change the world.
Absolutely. Happy Mother's Day, mothers.
Happy Mother's Day.
I just think about myself as a mother and mother's sacrifice. A lot of people ask me, how did you raise your daughters? Well, my yes was my yes, and my no's was my no's. But the sacrifice of raising them is not easy. I will not say that, but I look at it now, and I'm so thankful I did the way I did. So when I'm talking to young mothers that have children, and they ask me, guess what? My experience can teach them how to do what they need to do. That's why I always say experience and life lessons can change a generation.
It can. So share your stories, y'all. Me and my mom, we're sharing ours, but the goal is really for you to go out and share yours.
Yes.
Talk to your mothers, talk to your aunties, talk to your cousins.
Yes.
Talk to adopted mothers and
Yes.
adopted aunties.
Yes.
Don't limit yourself to the huge connected network of powerful women that we have.
Yes.
And just remember, if you have any moment where you feel like you are alone and you don't matter, there's an entire book that's 2,000 years old of people who thought they had nothing and that they were forgotten. And what we know through God is that He remembers and He sees. So I just want to thank you all for listening. Happy Mother's Day to everyone who is celebrating. And remember, your story matters and you are not forgotten. We'll see you next week. Thank y'all so much for tuning in to this episode of Talk to Your Mom. And we want to hear from y'all. We hope that you go out there and have these conversations with your mother. And make sure you talk back to us. You can follow us on Talk to Mom Pod on Twitter and Instagram. Until next time, so long.